I know that we are 4 minutes behind, but technical issues have caused us to run just a little bit late. At this time, I was going to ask Mayor Pro Tem Solomons if she would lead us in the invocation.
Yes. Oh, precious Father God, we come before you to say thank you. Thank you for your grace and mercy. Even through the crisis at hand, we still say thank you. And Father God, as we attempt this meeting, bind us with cords of love, that we may come to common ground, even when we have different opinions. Help us to be quick to listen and slow to anger when others share their ideas. And like always, God, keep us in love and in unity. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
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 Amen. Thank you, Councilwoman Solomons. At this time, if you please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
The
United States
of America.
to the
to the
republic
republic,
To the republic.
which stands
Stands
one nation
one nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
justice for all.
Moving on, item 4, approve March 11th, 2020 council meeting minutes. Council, I'm taking everyone's had a chance to review all of this, and at this time, I will take a motion to approve the minutes as written.
So moved.
Second.
It's been motioned and properly second. All in favor, I know you by raising your right hand. Moving on, item 5, approve March 20, 2020 emergency council meeting minutes.
So moved.
Council,
So move.
Second.
all in favor, I know you by raising your right hand.
Mayor, if I might, the other night you had everybody speak their vote and raise their hand. Because the recording may or may not tape everybody's hand, you might want to ask everybody to say aye as well.
All right, so thank you, Mr. Harvey. At this time, it's been motioned and properly seconded. All in favor, raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
Moving on, item 6, approve April 8, 2020 council meeting agenda.
So moved.
Second.
It's been motioned and probably second. All in favor, I know you by raising your right hand and stating aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Moving on to old business ordinance, item A or anything. Old business ordinance 032020 operating and capital budget amendment. Second reading. Council. This is the second reading. We've already had the first reading. This is just the amendment of the capital budget that we've already previously discussed.
Mr. Manfred, may I'd like to go ahead and make a motion that we approve ordinance 03-2020 operating the second amendment to the operating capital budget.
Second it.
It's been motioned and properly second. All in favor, I know you by raising your right hand and saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Moving on to new business, department reports. Due to the current status of the world and this nation and everything that's going on, we do not have our department heads with us at this time. Mr. Harvey and I have discussed this. There are several municipalities are moving forward and accepting stuff as written, and we'll revisit it at a later time. Am I correct on that, Mr. Harvey?
That's correct, Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, if I may
So-
add,
Yes, please.
this will be posted on our website so that the public can look at these reports. If the public has
Yes.
any questions, they are welcome to call my office, email me, or call those department heads themselves, or email them, and we will be glad to answer any question they may have.
Right. So we can move forward unless anyone has any questions about this, which I would suggest that we accept them as written. Yes, ma'am.
All except for mine, sir, because I do need your guidance.
Okay. We do have, I forgot that we do have our administrator with us tonight, and so we can move forward and let her discuss the issue she's got at hand. Go ahead, Ms. Miller.
My report, there are two issues that I have. One is I went ahead and revamped the Bull Durham Center's contract to include the $150 refundable deposit that was discussed. As long as the facility is left clean and clear and no damage, then that deposit will be refunded. However, there was a part here that if people were going to cancel the event, and if they called us the day before the event, then we cannot re-rent that out. So I wanted to put a provision in there, and hopefully it's acceptable, that in the event that they're going to cancel it, they need to give us a certain amount of notice ahead of time for them to get a refund on their deposit. And I felt that 7 days would be acceptable, but I wanted y'all's opinion on that before I put it into the administrative policy.
And as I do in every meeting, I will ask for comments, discussion on this matter that Ms. Miller has brought up. So I'll say to my left, which would be Mr. Savino.
I mean, 7 days is lengthy. I mean, I don't have too much of a problem with it. I might say something like 3 or 5 business days, something like that. And I'm not stuck on either one, but that's kind of my thought to it. I'll hear what everybody else has to say about it.
Ms. Baldwin.
I would say 3 to 5 business days as well. You know, that's ample enough time to re-rent if need be. You know, just sometimes circumstances allow
3 to 5.
3 to 5 is good for me.
Okay. Sorry, I was having just a little bit of trouble hearing you. I just wanted to make sure I heard you correctly. To my right, which would be Mr. Hadwin first.
I'm in agreement with 3 to 5 business days. I think that's sufficient.
Ms. Solomons.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with that. 3 or 5 days. That's sufficient enough.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
The second item is we have been approached for a hunting lease on the 600 acres that we own where the spray fields are. And while Mr. Harvey and I have been working together on putting a lease together as well as an ordinance, we didn't know how much y'all wanted to charge. And I wanted to bring this to you for discussion, and maybe if we have to postpone this until next meeting or whatever, but I wanted to bring it out into the open and see if we can come up with what we're going to charge.
Ms. Miller, I'm sorry, that's a contractual matter, and I believe council would be more comfortable talking about that in a later executive session.
Thank you, sir. Then I withdraw the question.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. Do you have anything else to add?
No, sir, that's it.
Okay. Then we will move into item B under new business, which is our March 2020 income statement. Council, I advise us to take this statement as information only. I hope that everyone has had a chance to review it, and if anyone has any questions about that, is there anyone that has anything to state about this income statement? Has everyone had a chance to review it? If not, I'll take a motion to accept this as information only.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, if I mean, no, go ahead, Council Bowling.
Okay, can we take March 2020 income statement as information only?
I second it.
Mr. Savino, did you have anything to state about that?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I was going to say is these, we take these income statements for information and whatnot. You never know when something like this shows up. We have hurricanes here. We don't have a lot of national pandemics, but we have hurricanes and we have unforeseen situations and unforeseen costs. So this is why we need to look at these things, know how much cushion we have financially, that kind of stuff, because the stuff shows up. I mean, no one sees this coming around the corner, but it's important to have an idea of what kind of cushion you have to address something like this. So anyway.
All right, thank you, Mr. Savino. We had a motion on the table or on the floor from Miss Solomons or Miss Bolden?
What's the question, Mayor?
I said
I made the motion.
we had a motion on the table or on the floor.
I made a motion to accept it as information only.
And I second it.
Okay. At this time, council, it's been motioned and properly second. All in favor, I know you by raising your right hand and stating aye. All right. Moving on. Item C, underneath new business, ordinance 07-2020, amending ordinance 05-2020, emergency curfew. This is the curfew we put in place last week. I know that there's been some heavy discussion as to the rights of citizens. Mr. Harvey, do you have anything to add to this? Or you?
No, Mayor. My opinion was when I presented council the ordinance last week, and continues to be, that the ordinance is valid under South Carolina law. I prepared the amended ordinance at Ms. Miller's suggestion, so that if council wanted to delete the firearm prohibition, that council could go ahead and do that. The governor's executive order, the most recent one, is pretty much a stay at home. It's a full-time curfew, but it allows folks to go out and for certain things. And the ordinance that the council passed last week is a full-blown curfew for certain hours. And because of that, it is simply adds to the governor's executive order and does not conflict with it. So, this is council's pleasure. Either way is legal, and council can act in its discretion.
Okay. I have one quick question. With the governor's ordinance that he's laid down with the basically stay at home, but if you have certain things you need to do, you're allowed to do them. With the ordinance that we would be moving forward with tonight, we will remove the firearms section of that ordinance, but our 9 p.m. to 5:30 a.m. curfew would still be in place, and we're allowed to do that, correct?
That's correct. City of Columbia has adopted an almost identical ordinance. The city of Charleston has adopted a curfew ordinance. I believe Rock Hill has adopted very similar ordinance. Estill is unique in that it is a small municipality, but it is council has had the foresight to pass something to protect its citizens.
That's the only thing that I
Mayor,
believe this entire council and government has, or body of government for this town has had in their mind is to protect its citizens. I know that we've had some pushback on what we did, but we do know that it was completely legal. We were just reinforcing some of the laws that are already stated. People have opinions about what a law is and the interpretation of it, but I believe with everything that has happened, I believe it's really reinforced a lot of good. But I think that it's up to the council at this point to adopt this ordinance 07-2020, which would amend ordinance 05-2020, emergency curfew. Is there any other discussion? I'll look to my left, which would be Mr. Savino first.
Mr. Mayor, I mean, I would really just, on the ordinance itself, I know there was a little bit of discussion around certain provisions in it. I mean, the intent behind the curfew is just like what the governor's trying to get people to do, is to stay home. He's discouraged anybody, or he's made it against the rules, to have a gathering larger than 3. He's essentially told people now to stay home, and this is just one more tool in the toolbox for our law enforcement and for our citizens to understand how serious it is to stay home. So removing the firearm provision for me is fine. It being in there is fine. I think it's sound, but regardless, if it detracts away from the main purpose, which is to encourage citizens to stay home, then I'm fine with it not being included in here.
Ms. Baldwin?
I'm okay with the curfew part of it. As far as the firearms part of it, I'm with taking it out. Like I said, the curfew stands enough, it stays enough, and all we asking the citizens to do is stay home with the curfew part. But when it comes down to the firearms and the explosives, I opt out of that part of it. But as far as the curfew part, I'm down with that.
Mr. Hatt, is there anything else?
I'll just
Go ahead, Mr. Savino.
jump in real quick. As it's written, I mean, the alcohol portion still stands. So the alcohol portion's still in it. We've got the curfew part and the alcohol part. The firearm portion right now is being taken out.
So that's the only part that's taken out, is the firearm part?
That's what's in writing, Ms. Bolden. Council's free to offer an amendment on the floor if that's something council would want to do.
And just, I mean, I'm fine with it as far as the be at home between 9 and 5. And then if you're out, you as far as I'm concerned, you don't need to have alcohol, with you. So I'm fine with it as written. I mean, I'm 1 out of 5. So by all means, anybody else can offer their opinion on it, but I'm fine with it as written.
With the laws that's in place,
Yeah.
it takes care of the alcohol as well as the firearms part. And, I've stated before, I think that's more of, where the guidelines set as anyway, it deals with alcohol consumption anyway. So police officers handle that every day. So with the curfew, I stand for the curfew. I stand for that, the 9 to 5. But the alcohol part and the firearms part, I'm not for it. Because it all stands,
All right.
I mean, we have laws already in place for that. So we just didn't have it in place for the town.
I mean, it would be the exact same thing as the laws that are already stated by the state of South Carolina. If you're caught if you're out during this curfew,
Law
and
enforcement would pick that up anyway.
your personal premises is your vehicle and your home.
Right.
If you're at home, you're fine to to have alcohol. We're not taking that right away. We can't take that right away from somebody. But if you have an open container, I mean, that's already stated that that's illegal.
Right, but it's already in the it's already a part of the policeman's job is to take care of that portion of it. Am I correct?
Yeah,
That's certainly something, that's certainly something the police have the discretion of doing. Sure, you are correct, Ms. Bowles.
Okay.
Mr. Hadwin.
I think just for clarity and no confusion, I would make a recommendation that we just take out the alcohol portion as well, just to eliminate that. Surely our officers, if they see them with an open container and they're not supposed to be out, surely our officers are going to handle that with good discretion and judgment. As far as the curfew is concerned, going right back to what Mr. Hart said, the city of Casey just imposed a curfew that starts today, or tonight rather, and it begins at 11 p.m. and goes through 5. And all the curfew is going to do is just add an extra layer of safety and protection for our citizens during this crisis that we're facing. But once again, I'm fine with the curfew part. I just see possibly some confusion on the alcohol portion, even though it does say sell, possess, or consume beer, wine, liquor, or intoxicating beverages of any kind upon any street, alley, roadway, or public property during curfew times. So if they're on their property, they're fine according to the way the ordinance is written. But I just see the potential of some people reading more into that than what's there, opening up another can of worms that we're going to have to possibly sit down and explain. And I think maybe just give the police officers the right to use discretion, and we just remove that part about alcohol to save us some grief on the road.
All right. I think we lost Mr. Harvey, but
No,
anyway,
I'm right here.
we'll move on.
I'm right here.
Okay, for some reason your screen went off, but that's fine. Then we have
I went to low power mode on my phone. I got to plug it in.
Do you have anything to add, Ms. Solomons?
Yes, I will make a recommendation of the curfew only. I'm down with the curfew, but for as firearm and alcohol, I think that's another territory, and that's one we don't need to enter. I'm strictly for the curfew.
All right. Everybody has stated their piece. I think that everybody's ready to move forward. I will say that I think we're doing the right thing, but also to know that Mr. Harvey, one quick question. I believe Supreme Court has had 3 cases that they have supported this actual ordinance, if I'm incorrect.
That's correct, Mr. Mayor. Again,
Okay.
this ordinance began with hurricanes and folks
Yes, sir.
getting out and doing things where they shouldn't have been doing when there was dangerous to be on the street, and it's been upheld once. It would be upheld again.
I thought it had been upheld 3 times, but
Well, yeah,
it
you're
has
right.
been upheld once.
No,
But anyway, so I just want to state that what we did, people have said that we did something that was illegal. We did not, but instead of causing controversy, we'll let state law do what it normally does. We were just reinstating it. But I don't want anyone to think that we did something. We're trying to take people's rights away from them. But at this time, I will take a motion to amend ordinance 05-2020 emergency curfew by adopting ordinance 07/2020.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, and
There
I'm
will have to
sorry,
be stipulations in there.
you want to make sure that you take out section 2 about the alcohol too as amended.
Yeah, the
Yes.
proper motion,
So,
the proper
somebody-
motion.
Thank you,
would-
Mr. Harvey.
The proper motion would be to amend the proposed amended ordinance by adding, so deleting section 3, referring to alcohol. And then you pass that motion to amend what's before you. And then you pass the ordinance as amended by your motion. I know that sounds contrived, but that's Robert's Rules of Order.
Mr.
Okay, so
Mayor.
council. Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, I was just gonna say, I'll make a motion to accept the amendments that we're going to propose to section 2.2, removing sale or possessing and consuming of alcohol from the ordinance 07/2020, and remaining in place the curfew from 9 p.m. to 5:30 a.m.
I second it.
Mr. Harvey, was that correct numbers?
That's a good motion.
Okay, I just want to make sure. I wasn't sure if it was 3 or 2. I've got a few things laid out, but anyway, I'm with you. It's been motioned and properly seconded. All in favor, I know by raising your right hand and stating aye.
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 All right, moving on. D, mayor's report related to emergency purchase of PPE, personal protection equipment. We discussed this at our last emergency meeting last Thursday, and I was able to make some connections through some people that I know that were ordering PPE for other municipalities. We voted on that to move forward. I gave y'all a price, and the price was just, it fluctuated a little bit, not an extreme amount, but it's because people are bidding. As you've heard Governor Cuomo of New York state how people are bidding up prices on ventilators and PPE. Literally in 24 hours, it went up almost $2,000. We moved forward on that because I believe the timeline when we will receive this PPE gear, wipes, 2 styles of face mask and hand sanitizer, when it will be arriving here to our town is around the time we're going to run out of what we have. As everyone has seen, the grocery stores, all the other stores that have, I mean, everybody's out of this stuff. As soon as they get it, any is gone. So we all voted to try to secure this, and that is done. We're looking at, probably 20 days. No guarantee on the 20 days, but we're probably looking at 20, 21 days, 22 days, somewhere in there. And this will be for, first responders and for town hall. And if need be, we could actually decide to use them for other things if the citizens or other areas need them, depending on the state of our town and the state of this pandemic that we're going through. I just want to give y'all an update on that. I think I've talked to almost everyone about that situation and brought everybody up to speed on that. And so, does anybody have any questions about that?
No questions, ma'am.
No questions.
Go ahead, Ms. Simeon.
And it's not related to the purchase here per se. The only thing I would kind of ask is if I know we're having weekly calls now, or we're trying to set up weekly calls with the county and the emergency management department. If we could get some kind of inventory level of what we have and then encourage the other municipalities to try and get some kind of inventory level. What I'm trying to get to is so we could communicate that to the county. So if the county is the one that's got to make the request to the state for additional PPE in the event that, municipalities are running low, that way we can try and be ahead of whenever this order gets here.
That's a good idea. I think we definitely need to coordinate with the county on that. I have made contact with Senator Scott's office. Told Mr. Jenkins. I told him several times over the past few days about what he's working on. So we also have that going for us as well. I see two hands that had questions. Mr. Hadwin, you had a question first.
Well, I just had a comment, Mayor. I spoke with Ms. Suzanne Peoples at your request last week to see about getting gloves. And she stated that they were trying to get some, but even EMS at this point, they're struggling getting gloves for their personnel due to the high demand. But she would keep us in mind as they order.
That's the reason I took the steps that I did last week, because everything I was just able, had a contact and was offered the opportunity, and this is a major shipment that will be coming in, and I was able to jump on board. I offered this to the other mayors in the county. No one responded. I offered this to the county. I let everyone know, and I feel like there will be a shortage. But the town of Estill is going to be prepared. Hopefully they will get here sooner than later. We could see them as early as 15 days from what I'm told. But as everyone knows right now, things have slowed down with shipping. So, but very lucky and fortunate to be able to have that opportunity. And I think the town of Estill will be better off because of Ms. Miller. I saw you had your hand up. Do you have something to state?
I just wanted to add that we are having weekly meetings with all the mayors via phone. We had the first one today. I will go ahead and forward an email to Ms. Peoples to make sure that, and that she disseminates to the other municipalities to get that kind of inventory ready for the next meeting, which is Monday. And hopefully we can get an idea of what everybody has and what the needs are.
Mr. Savino?
Yeah, I think that's super duper. And if we can standardize it, or if she wants to standardize it and just focus on, police departments, fire departments, EMS, and then, I'll call it town hall buildings or staff buildings or whatnot type thing. That way everybody's measuring the same thing or whatnot.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And that's like I've stated to all of our first responders that these guys are our heroes. These are the ones that are putting themselves on the front lines for us, and we have got to take care of them. And that's the main reason this order went through. It was to make sure that they're safeguarded because we need them and we need them to be protected. And so anyway, that's all I have to say about that. We can move on now unless anyone has any other questions. Okay, we'll move on to item E, which is ordinance 012020, amending ordinance 082015 related to buildings unfit for human habitation. First reading, Ms. Miller.
This ordinance has come about because apparently there was an ordinance passed in 2015 that moved the appeal process from the Board of Appeals to the municipal court. And this is reversing that ordinance and reinstating the actual procedures that will take place. Mr. Harvey, did I say it right?
That's correct, Ms. Miller. And I took the liberty of while I was reviewing that to reorganize the ordinance. one of the things that we have to be careful about when we're passing things that are dealing with people's property is that we make sure that our ordinances are not vague, because that's the key, the chief way a smart lawyer will challenge an ordinance or the town's intention to condemn and demolish a building. And they'll say, you know, a smart lawyer will say, wait a minute, this ordinance is vague. My client didn't know what was going on. And in my opinion, the ordinance that you had was not organized very well, which led to some ambiguity. And I took the liberty of reorganizing what you already had. Did not add any language at all. I just put it in a format that I tried to remove as much ambiguity as I had, and tried to make this lawsuit, this ordinance lawsuit proof. But otherwise, all you're doing is going back to where functionally, all you're doing is going back to where you were in 2015.
Council, has everyone had an opportunity to review this?
May I chime in?
Yes.
Me personally speaking, I just think that we have so much going on at this time. And just getting our package a few days ago, really didn't have time to really review this thoroughly. So me personally speaking on this ordinance, I think this is something we can table, because I don't want to make no decision again doing Zoom and make a mistake that we're going to later regret. It maybe need our attention, but if it's not urgent at this time, I think this is something I feel we should table.
Mr. Mayor, if I may interject for 1 second.
Yes, ma'am.
This is first reading, so we still have at least 2 more weeks before this goes for the final vote. There is an urgency on this because we have 2 CDBG grants that are on hold until this ordinance is passed and fixes it, or else we're going to have to start all over again on the CDBG grants, and we may have to forfeit one of them. So my suggestion would be to go ahead and pass it on first reading, because that's all we're doing, it's first reading. And then we have a window between now and the next meeting for everybody to be able to review the ordinance, comment on it, make changes, send them to Mr. Harvey or to me, and that way all your concerns will be addressed at the next meeting when you finally vote on it as a final reading.
And I'll chime in on that real quick. Ms. Solomon, you know, so we had the board that we founded, and we've gone through. We had to do a lot of these changes to make sure that we were fitting the bill of what's the CDBG grant qualifications were, to make sure that we were in line and we met all of their, you know, specifications. This is one of them. And if you haven't had time to review it, we will lose time, because we won't be able to, you know, we would lose a week if we have to go revisit it again. But we're not passing anything tonight.
Right. I understand that.
I do appreciate your not you being honest that you didn't get to review it. But this is something that we have, you know, discussed about. I do want to hear the rest of the council's opinion though before we make a decision.
Okay.
And Ms. Solomon, do you have any comment, to rebuttal to that?
That question was to me or Council Savino?
It was to you, Ms. Solomon. I apologize. I might need to turn this air conditioner off so y'all can hear me better. Do you have any questions about what I just stated?
No, I understand exactly what you stated, and as well as Ms. Miller. I just don't want us to just be making such a quick judgment on things. And I know this is very important, but I just don't think we get our package early enough to review it and make decisions. and making a
And-
decision to meet over Zoom. And I guess I feel this way because like on last Thursday night was our first time having a meeting through Zoom. And the part about the gun went over my head. I didn't even heard that part. So therefore, I thought we was particularly just dealing with curfew. So that's why I'm not so, fond of us just making a decision over Zoom and not having enough time to review it, all the information.
And I agree with you, Ms. Solomon, and I promise you that the next packet will go out at least earliest possible time, which in my mind would be either Thursday or Friday before the meeting.
Yes, that would be
I
better.
promise
because
you that that is what we will strive for.
Right, because we just got the package Monday
How
evening.
much time do we have, Ms. Miller?
I'm not sure, Ms. O'Banner, I thought that the packets went out on Friday before you and I went home.
No, Monday.
No,
No,
you
I'm
just,
talking about how much time do we have before
we're
this?
supposed to be getting
have
them
to
out the
meet
Friday
the
before,
deadline.
Mayor. Ms.
Ma'am?
Miller, you just finished with the ordinances and paperwork on Monday. So we
Okay,
actually
so
got
yes,
them.
it was Monday. I apologize. We were striving for Friday. I'm sorry.
I know that's when
Mr.
I
Mayor.
received mine was Monday evening.
Yeah, that's when she completed everything.
So,
Sorry about that, Mr. Mayor. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
One statement I would have to say, we are all going through a lot right now with this, but
Right.
and we don't know when this is going to end. We could be having these meetings for the next 3 months.
Correct.
I hope and pray that we don't. This isn't something that I enjoy, not being able to sit and look y'all in the face, personally when we do this. But we may have to come accustomed to doing the town's business the best way we can during these times.
Right.
How much time do we have before the grant deadline? I mean, to make sure that we fall in line with all the stipulations that we have and all the specifications that we are going to need to be in line with. How much time do we have, Ms. Miller?
They have given us another 30 days at this point. That may change and be extended, but we need to have those hearings done by the end of May, the latest. So that's where we're at.
Okay. Fair enough. Does anyone else have a comment on this? I mean, we can motion to table it.
I have a question.
If y'all give me 1 second, I'm going to step out. I'm going to turn this air conditioner on so I can hear everybody a little bit better.
On this CDBG project, is it referring to the same properties that we've had on the list all this time?
There are 2 separate grants. One of them covers the Church Street area, and the other one covers Morrison and a couple of other properties. The Church Street area is the one that also has the town's building on it. And that's the first one that we received, and that's the one that needs to move forward quickly. The other one, we still have time on.
Well, I'm with Mayor Pro Tem on this one. I think we need to slow down a little bit because we're doing Zoom and with the situations at hand at the moment. Before we make a mistake on something, rather than voting for the first reading tonight, I've read over the packet. Yes, I have, but I still say give it a little more time for us to get a more clarity on it, on what we're doing here at the moment, instead of being so quick to pass an ordinance that we may have to go back and change.
I agree.
Well, when you give it a second reading, if you want to change it, you can change it at the second reading. It's not a final decision tonight.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Harvey, usually ordinances are only read by title only for first reading.
That's correct.
Okay.
Nothing's final until y'all give it a second reading.
Correct.
I was just going to echo. Yeah, I was just going to echo what Mr. Harvey says there. I mean, we really have zero risk in doing a first reading on this tonight. We can go through for the next 2-3 weeks and study the language closer and get Mr. Harvey to give us some opinions on it before we do a second reading, which is where it actually goes into effect. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm 1 of 5. I'm not trying to convince anybody anything, but we from my eyes, I mean, we've got zero risk in approving a first reading, but on the backside, we do have risk with CDBG taking money from us if we delay. So it's a free pass. What I mean is, there's no risk in doing a first reading. And whenever we're ready to do a second reading and everybody's got clarity and comfort on the verbiage, we can do it at that point in time.
Correct.
So,
We're only pushing the ball further closer to the finish line. We can put in anything we need between now and then. This is not anything that's going to do anything anytime soon. If we need to, have a discussion about this, and each one of us have a discussion with the administrator and the attorney about what we need to do, we have time. But Mr. Savino, what you stated about we do have the opportunity to lose a grant, but there's no risk here. We have risk in not moving forward. We have no risk in moving forward. We can do whatever changes we need to do. We can take as much time as we need, but we go ahead and at least have the first reading so that we don't have to have a first reading and then wait another week. But it's the council's pleasure.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say the same thing. We can do a first reading tonight, and you could do a second reading in December this year. I mean, and nothing happens until December. So,
Are there any other comments?
No more comments.
Any other discussion?
Comment.
Mr. Savino?
I will throw this out there. I mean, it is to everybody's point in this, it is a lengthy ordinance. There is a lot to it. There's an enforcement arm to it with the Board of Zoning Appeals. There's some definitions as far as what's a nuisance, what's dilapidated, and whatnot. I think it is prudent that everybody does read through it. I mean, I've had a chance to read through it, and there is a lot to digest in it.
Yes.
I mean, there really is, and it's a document that the town needs to have on the books, and it gives our code enforcement people some real tools in their toolbox. So from that standpoint, it is. I mean, I think it's about 9 pages or so. I mean, it's a bit of a bit to bite off and chew and understand. So I agree with everybody in that there's a lot to digest and a lot to understand. Again, I'm 1 out of 5, and I'm not trying to convince anybody of too much, but for me, I'm fine with doing a first reading. There's zero risk from my standpoint of doing a first reading on this. We can go through and study this closer as a council and even with the administrator with more questions on what we've got to make sure we do understand what it is we're obligating ourselves to.
I don't have a problem with the ordinance. I'm just saying is that you write an ordinance, you find a mistake, you amend that. All I'm saying is make sure that it's correct when we do our first reading. So we have to keep going back and forth. I don't have nothing wrong with the verbiage. It's just that the mistakes that are being made, we need to make sure that it's written correctly instead of going back and forth, amending this and amending that. That's all I'm saying.
Well, the ordinance won't be ratified tonight. It'll just be the first reading, and we can change it before we actually have the second reading, which just saves us some time. I mean, we're not doing anything that will start tomorrow. I mean, if we basically we can have our first reading tonight, and for the next 3 weeks, or 4 weeks, or 5 weeks, or 6 weeks, we can add in. We can talk about it at another meeting of what we need to do. And figure out exactly if there's anything that we believe needs to be taken out or things that we need to be added in. Have our lawyer and have the administrator put that in, take out, and then we can have our second reading. But there's zero risk by making a first reading of just the actual title of it. That says that we have a working ordinance in place that we're working on. And I hope I didn't state that incorrectly, did I, Mr. Harvey?
No, I'm sorry.
Was that something directed to me? I didn't hear you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I was just asking, this is a working ordinance. I mean, just with the first reading, we still have plenty of time to do whatever we need to change everybody. But
It's
if
so
we
different
don't,
from me. I'm sorry.
go ahead.
It's no different from any other ordinance that this council passes. It's got to have a first reading before it can have a second. You've always put a first reading on the table and give it consideration, and then you discuss it, and then you pass. If you don't like the language, then when you give it a second, it's up for a second reading. You do an amendment. That's the way the process works.
Is council all right with passing a first reading tonight and working on this until everyone has that opportunity? We just would be missing the opportunity to go ahead and have that first reading.
You're gonna need a motion, sir.
No, well, I'm asking, is there any comments to tonight? Mr. Hammond, do you have any comments?
Well, the only thing, just listening to everyone's conversation or their opinion, as long as everyone is in agreement, as long as we have majority, but it would be nice to have everyone on board with this. I do agree that we need to have time to look over this ordinance to make sure, like Councilwoman Bolden said, that we have everything covered. The verbiage, the wording is correct, that we have everything in place to make sure. I also understand the urgency that we need to start this process so that we have something on the table to show the people that we are working on it. So if it's just by name only, which is what I believe I heard the attorney say as well, that this would be only a name and assigning a number to it, I'm okay with that. But I definitely believe that all of us need to have time to read this, study it, to be sure all our concerns, our questions are addressed before we do anything else. That's all I have to say.
I agree. I mean, I think that's what we're all, we know that there may possibly be some things in there before we have a second reading and pass this ordinance. At this time, I'll put a motion on the floor and I'll open the floor up for motions unless anyone else has a comment.
Mr. Mayor, in order, I would like to propose that we accept ordinance 01/2020, amending ordinance 08/2015 related to buildings unfit for human habitation, first reading by name and ordinance number only.
I second that motion.
It's been motioned and properly second. All in favor, I know you by raising your right hand and stating aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Council. We're moving on now to ordinance 02/2020, an ordinance to provide for curfew in times of emergency, to change curfew for minors, and to impose penalties for violation of curfew. First reading. Ms. Miller.
I'm going to defer this to the attorney.
This is designed to go hand in hand with the emergency ordinance. The reason you had to pass an emergency ordinance rather than having a proclamation from the mayor was you didn't have something on the books that allowed the mayor to make that proclamation, which state law allows if council gives him that authority. I did that because of the concern about the street party, and this just makes this doesn't make a permanent curfew. What this does is gives the mayor in an emergency situation the authority to declare a curfew. It's certainly it's just gives council an option to have that that on the books.
If I understand correctly, Mr. Marty, basically we're trying to follow, what the governor's doing. We've also put a curfew in that we all agree upon with the 9 to 5. And instead of having to come back to a meeting every single time for us to move on this, it would allow me to say, hey, we can lift the curfew, if things change.
That's right. And it would allow it would allow any mayor to make that decision.
Okay, so if the governor lifts the curfew, I could lift the curfew. Or if the governor imposes stiffer restrictions that allows me, instead of us having to have an emergency meeting, which I've always discussed everything with every one of y'all, and I've never made a decision without that discussion, because I believe everybody's vote in this matters. But that's the way I interpret it, is that it allows me the right to make those changes so that if deemed necessary. Are there any questions about this? Mr. Savino?
There's really no questions. It's just a comment as far as, we have hurricanes here, we have tornadoes here, we have disasters here. And this is a new one for everybody in this world, but this stuff happens. And, the federal government deemed it, the founders deemed it appropriate to give the governor's authority to declare states of emergencies within their state. It makes sense to me that council needs to give, they need to have the ability, an ordinance on the books to allow their mayor, whomever that may be, whenever we're not here anymore, to declare an emergency if needed. And Mr. Harvey, correct me if I'm wrong, could a municipality declare an emergency within their limits without the state declaring an emergency?
Yes, because let's just say you had a tornado that only hit us.
Gotcha. Okay.
That's the utility of an ordinance like this.
Gotcha.
If you got an immediate disaster that hits just Estill, and tornadoes are that way, then this would allow whoever the mayor is at that point to say, okay, we're having a curfew, it's going to last whatever, and then come back to council and have at a more convenient time and talk to council about it.
Right. And so on that
note,
I
will state one thing about that is that, if it was an emergency, it would only be, there's no way that I'm doing anything without y'all's blessing on this. We're all in this together. I've stated that from the very beginning. I want y'all's vote of confidence on the actions that I would take on behalf of the council and the town to ensure safety for our citizens, the health and well-being of our citizens. I promise you that I don't want to be the one who does something that is going to be a restriction or a burden upon the citizens. This is only for the well-being of them. And I would talk to y'all about this. And it would be in a situation, the only situation I wouldn't is if I could not reach y'all, and it was dire that we did this. And I think y'all all, I know y'all will trust me to make that decision. But the table's still open for discussion on this. We're in times right now that we've never seen, and we don't know what's going to happen. And we're all in this together, and we're having to make these decisions and do the things that we're doing so that we are looking out for the people who elected us to do the job that we're doing. Ms. Savino, did you have another question?
Yeah, I'd add on this is that, this ordinance goes beyond anybody that's in this conference call today. It goes beyond, the mayor that is today, or, any of us. We serve at the pleasure of the citizens. They may change their mind in a year or two, and there's a new group of people in here that disasters and emergencies always happen. We could have a train derail with chlorine gas. Mr. Harvey said you could have a tornado. You could have an explosion of a liquid propane facility that we have here in town. There's 1,000 things that can happen that I don't want to sit here and go through, but it's past me today in that I'd like to know that our mayor, whomever he or she is, has the authority to do what the town elects them to do, which is look out for what's best for their citizens. And if something blows up and they need to say, everybody stay home between these hours because we got stuff we got to do with emergency management, it makes sense to me. But anyway, that's.
I'm okay.
And
with
this is,
I would like to charm it. Go ahead, Council Board.
okay, with this curfew, we have a curfew set in place already. I have no problem with the curfew at hand for the minors. But it's saying between the hours of 11 p.m. and 6 a.m.
If I may, that was the same thing that two other council members mentioned earlier, the inconsistency. And those, again, it's a first reading. Their suggestion and my suggestion is to be consistent with our emergency curfew times.
See, this goes back to what I was just saying.
Yes, ma'am.
Instead of all of these ordinance, and then you have to go back and amend it because you're not proofreading what you're putting out. We're moving a little too fast for certain things. Things need to be proofread. If you're sending something to me and you want me to sign it, therefore it should be as close to being perfect if it's an ordinance. Because see, if this was to slide through the cracks, it's going to end up like before. I'm not going to sign.
This is the first reading, Ms. Bolden.
I understand it's the first reading.
People have already caught that. This was something we're trying. Everybody's reeling with a lot on their plate right now, and
I understand, but I'm just trying to make
that there's a change that needs to be made.
It's a change that needs
this is
to be
only
made,
the first reading.
and I understand that. I'm done.
Anyone else?
May I chime in, Mayor?
Yes, ma'am.
I will have to agree with Council Bolin on this as well. This is like we were just speaking on. We got to be careful and rushing through these ordinance, getting the paper 2 days before, making decision. This is where we're wasting so much time because you got to come back and amend it. You got to do this and that and the other. We got to take our time and stop rushing making decisions. You know, I mean, it's so much that's going on right now, and I can't speak for everyone, but I'm speaking for Tammy. It's a lot of pressure going on. There's a lot of stressing going on, and we got to be careful in the decisions that we are making for our citizens. And I just don't feel like we should be making any decision of dealing with any more ordinance. This is the first time that I've seen we had an agenda with this many ordinances on it. I'm being straight up. And it's too much to comprehend. And these things are not just one sheet. I mean, it's just too much. And I'm just not in agreement with all of these ordinances on this agenda. I mean, that's just
I appreciate that, and I appreciate what
and we need to be careful what we putting out there because, you know, we're getting our head chopped off the block for making mistakes. And we are entitled to mistakes because we are human. But let's be careful. We're not saying we perfect, but like she said, let's be close to perfect. You're sending something to be signed or passed. Let's make sure we got it right. That's all I'm just saying.
I'm 100% with you. I'm 100% with you. I'm with you both. I understand what you're saying. Now let's make something 100% clear. Nothing's getting signed tonight. We do know that it was recognized that there was a mistake. This is the reason you have a first reading. There's zero risk in the first reading, but you stated that there are more ordinances on this meeting agenda than you've ever seen.
That I ever seen.
There's something you've never seen before. This world's never seen novel COVID-19.
Correct.
We are in something I've never had to communicate with y'all or when I was a council member with the mayor via Zoom.
Right.
Nobody has ever seen anything like this, except maybe a few people that are still alive that saw the influenza pandemic in 1918. We've got to stay strong together on this. This right here is not to be controversial to our curfew. It has some hours that need to be changed. But in case of an emergency, this is something we need to have in place. But we also need to have the correct verbiage in it. This is only the first reading. We're gonna have to have another meeting next week and the week after that. We may have to start having them every couple of days. We don't have the personnel in town hall like we normally do. Miss Miller and Miss O'Banner are doing a lot of work that a lot of ladies and gentlemen used to help them with, and mistakes are going to be made. We have to keep looking at each other and helping each other through this. We're not throwing this isn't hitting the streets tonight. It isn't hitting the streets tomorrow. It isn't hitting the streets, Monday. We've got to have another week. And everybody will have enough time. I'm not saying that we need to do this right now. It's just proposed to y'all. But we do know that there's an hourly change in there. And someone may find something else. But the next 2 weeks in South Carolina are going to be critical. They're going to be very critical. We're going to hit our peak in 2 weeks. And we don't have the things that we need available currently. I hope that I'm wrong. I hope that this thing that we have a anti-venom, that we have a cure for this. But the projections have been pretty close, if not almost exact, except for a few little things. But all we're trying to do is to make sure we're insuring these citizens. This right here is not going to hurt anyone. We can make those corrections very easily, and this is not hitting the ground. Y'all are 100% correct. You've read through this. Y'all see that there need to be changes, and the changes can be made. But this is not hitting. We're not signing on this tomorrow or the next day. We have to have a second reading, and if we need to do that in 2 weeks, but if we need to have another emergency meeting because of the times that we are in this world and in this country, we things are changing. That's the reason we're doing such an ordinance as this. I'm not fighting y'all. I'm agreeing with y'all, but let's try to make sure that we understand what this is for. And go ahead, Sabina.
Miss Miller, go ahead. You were up. Go ahead.
I want to reiterate, this is an agenda that you're not used to seeing. However, your attorney, who is looking out for you legally, is trying to give you all the wherewithal and future councils the ability to not have to go through what we are going through right now, where we're passing emergency ordinances and then having to go back and fix them. This is a first reading for you all to be aware that this is something that we as staff and as your attorney is bringing forward to you to consider. Whether this goes to second and final reading, you still have to have a public hearing before the final reading. So you have a lot of time. And I apologize if you're not used to seeing this, many ordinances, but because of the times that we're in, your attorney is advising you to please consider these so that in the future, we won't have to go back and do last minute emergency meetings to get things done when the next disaster hits. That's all I'm trying to say. I'm sorry if it's not something you're used to.
But may I say something?
Hmm.
May I say something?
Yes.
I understand the ordinance. I can comprehend very well. But when I look at this ordinance with the curfew for the children, you put the same thing in this curfew as the other one we had. Like number 2, possesses beyond a person's own private premises, buy, sell, give away, or otherwise transfer or dispose of any explosive, firearm, ammunition, or dangerous weapons of any kind. Number 3, sell, possesses, or consume beer, wine, liquor, or intoxicating beverages of any kind. I can read. But the point I'm trying to make is, do these things in a correct order. I don't like stuff worded like this. Because this, 2 and 3, that's what the officers we hire here to do. I understand you have a curfew for the minors. I'm good with that. Yes, they do need to be off the street. I understand what you're saying. First reading, I understand. But if you want to pass something for a first reading, at least have it as close to what you want. This is not something I want, so I'm out of this one. Now, if you're going to do a curfew for a minor, do it in a proper way. Do it the correct way. Do it where minors will stay off the street. Number 2 and 3, our officers take care of that. That's why we hired them. That's why we pay them.
I've got something.
This is number 2 and 3 that just got us in the trouble. But you do as you please. I'm out of it. You can do what you want with ordinance 02/2020. I'm out of that. Not even for the first reading. Unless you rewrite this, then I'll be in on the first reading. But no, I'm not a part of that. I'm finished.
Mr. Harvey, real quick, just to try and refocus the discussion back on what we have in front of us, the 02/2020. This is really, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is really an instrument that allows a mayor to declare a state of emergency within his or her municipal limits if he or she deems necessary. Is that right?
That's correct. And this was drafted at the same time the emergency ordinance was drafted. I did not know at the time that I drafted this ordinance that there was going to be objection about the firearms and the alcohol. And it's simply something that can be changed. But yes, this is just to put in place something so that the mayor, without in a moment's notice, in an emergency disastrous situation, can put in place a curfew so that first responders, disaster people, railroad people can and keep the public.
You broke up there towards the end, Mr. Harvey. I think you were kind of getting to the heart of your comments there. You broke up.
Well, again, the purpose of the ordinance is so that on a moment's notice, whether there's a train disaster or a tornado or an explosion, that the mayor can right then say, okay, we got to put this town on lockdown so that no one's exposed to a granitable situation, for example, where there's a chlorine gas leak, or the propane place goes and sets the whole town on fire, or a tornado happens. The mayor doesn't have time to give the public 24 hours notice. It's going to be the cat's out of the bag at that point. You need to have something in place where on a moment's notice, the mayor can say, this is an emergency, this is a curfew.
Right. And so that's.
I have one thing to ask. I thought I had something different. I read. I was putting something into a different perspective. But is it legal for someone under the age of 17 to possess a firearm inside of private property, buy, sell, give, transport, explosive, ammunition, dangerous weapon of any kind, sell, possess, or consume beer, wine, liquor, or intoxicating beverages? Is that legal?
Well, no, it's not legal, but you've got two sections of this ordinance. Okay. The first empowers the mayor to impose a curfew. The second section is about the minors. The first section will apply to everyone if an emergency curfew is imposed. The second section will be a full-time curfew as to minors. Has nothing to do with there's
that's
nothing in
that's the reason I'm asking. That pertains to I understand. Okay.
And the town, this is not the town of Estill. This is not something that I just cooked up. Again, this is something that the Municipal Association, Attorneys Association has presented to any number of cities and towns in this state. And these are on many towns' municipal codes, this language.
And I'll just throw this out there. I mean, what this instrument allows, just like Mr. Harvey said, it gives your mayor, whoever he or she may be 5 years from now or 50 years from now, the ability to put in a curfew if he or she deems it necessary. Now, I don't think too many people are too far opposed to that, but what I'll say for emphasis is, imagine some catastrophic situation, and everybody in this body knows that you need to have a curfew. Well, the mayor can't convene everybody, so you got people running around for one night or 2 nights with no curfew because he or she doesn't have the authority to do what he needs to do because he didn't adopt this ordinance. And I'm not saying that's where we're at right now, but that's what this instrument is. It's not about, it's not to get hung up on firearms and the rest of that stuff. It's a mechanism to give the mayor authority. With that, I'll leave it up. I'll give it up.
I believe. Go ahead, Mr. Hammond.
The only thing I'll say to this, and I think hopefully what I'm about to say will give us all common ground so we can move through the rest of the agenda tonight. And if I'm wrong, each one of you can correct me when we see each other face to face, and that'll be fine. Listening to everyone's comments here, I personally think at this point, we already have a curfew in place. It's an emergency curfew that'll last 60 days from implementation last Friday. Once, and I believe that curfew will allow, if it needs to be extended based on the circumstances, the present situation, it gives you that authority along with, I believe, the town administrator in that regard. So what I will propose to you and everyone else, due to the situation we're in right now, let us hold off on this, let's study it, and if by the next time we meet, whether it be via Zoom or in person, gives everybody an opportunity to look at Ordinance 02/2020, write down our comments, our concerns, our questions, whatever it is, and let's bring that to the table, and then we can focus on this one ordinance and get the attention that everybody right now agrees it needs to have, and let's make sure our wording is correct, and then we can take that first reading after we propose what we need Mr. Marty to incorporate or take out or whatever. I think that would be a good way to handle this particular ordinance. That's just my opinion, for whatever it's worth.
Thank you, Mr. Hammond. Are there any comments on this?
I would agree with Councilor Hammond.
Agree with Councilor Hammond.
Okay. Well, I think that everyone is kind of, but we've got some changes that we got to be made. We will have to have a meeting shortly again when everyone sees exactly what they want on here, and that is correct. So, I mean, at this time, from what I'm understanding, I'll take a motion, and if y'all want to pass it, you can. If you want to table it, you can. But I have to have a motion to affect one or the other. Go ahead, Mr. Savino. You have one statement.
Yep, y'all. You don't have to second it if you don't want to, but I'll just make a motion to table ordinance 02/20, ordinance to provide a curfew in times of emergency and impose penalties for the first reading. I'll just make a motion to table it.
I second.
Second.
It's been motion and probably second. All in favor, I know you by raising your right hand and saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. We're moving on. Next ordinance is an ordinance to provide for prohibition of loitering, to regulate noise and to regulate the public consumption of alcohol. First reading, this is ordinance 0620. During a curfew, I'll let the attorney and let the attorney add on this, but during a curfew, you're not allowed in public. This is something that is being done all over this country right now. So consumption of alcohol in public, and noise ordinances where there's, at this point, our governor has stated no more than 3 people are to be gathered. Now this can be changed and lifted only after this crisis is over. Council discussion. We've already had some serious issues prior to our curfew, and then literally right after our curfew. My opinion of this, as the mayor of the town of Estill, is that if our police are still breaking up parties where 30 and 40 and 50 people are gathered while we have a curfew in place, they're consuming alcohol, they're still playing loud music. The governor has asked us to have a curfew, to stay at home and to not gather with 3 or more people. And our police broke up parties last night, the night before. We were trying to stop the spread of this. If we have a curfew in place, the way I understand it is that this basically just reiterates that you cannot be in public with alcohol. Mr. Harvey, could you elaborate on this for me, please? And then
Mayor,
I'm just asking.
Yeah, sure. Mayor, this was, again, sent to you, all of council, at one time with the other 2 ordinances you've already discussed. This is just something I did not know where this may already be on the town of Estill's books, but I don't have access to all of the town's ordinances. That's cost prohibitive for Ms. O'Banner to make photocopies of everything for me to have. And so out of an abundance of caution and as a matter of professional responsibility, I'm giving you the opportunity to pass this. Again, I don't know whether you have already have on the books a loitering ordinance. I doubt that you do, because this ordinance was prepared after a United States Supreme Court opinion that was issued out in the early 2000s, which restricted the kinds of loitering ordinances that used to be on the books. This language was prepared by First Amendment lawyers and incorporated the suggestions of the U.S. Supreme Court to get so that this language would pass constitutional muster. The public consumption of alcohol, there's an ordinance, there's a law, state law that says public drunkenness, but it doesn't say public consumption. The towns can adopt an ordinance prohibiting consumption, not just public drunkenness, and so that's why that is proposed. And again, this gives you an opportunity, if you wish, to to give more ammunition, so to speak, to your police force to be able to keep the peace in the town of Estill. It's a suggestion that I said, okay, while I'm doing this other stuff, I'll send it to council and let council have the opportunity, if they like, to put this on their books.
Have a question, Mayor. Mr. Marty, were you able to check with Ms. Miller to see whether the town of Estill have that ordinance?
We did, with all the other stuff going on, Ms. O'Banner, we did not get that part done. But certainly before a
Ms.
second
Miller,
reading
were you
would be-
able to check to see if we have that ordinance on file?
No,
I was
I'm
not
not-
aware that there was an issue.
I'm out of the picture for 1 second. I've got a file of ordinances, and give me, y'all have discussion. I can hear you, but I'm going to be out of the picture getting some files to see if we do have anything close.
Okay, so Mr. Marty, you didn't check with Ms. Miller to see if we have it on file?
no, Ms. O'Banner, because of all the other things going on, I did not. But I figured that would be done before a second reading was in fact. If a first reading was given, before a second reading would be given, that question would be answered.
Okay, so Ms. Miller, you approved to put it in the packet?
I was just given the ordinance by the attorney, and I assumed that this was supposed to be brought forward to the council like anything else that an attorney does for them to consider. I didn't get approval from anybody. Put it on there for consideration. It can be, it's up to council. It's not up to me.
But may I chime in for a moment?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Council Bowling.
This is what I'm saying. And I don't have any problem with the ordinance at all. All I say is for anyone, whoever it may be, proofread things before you send it out. Because in this ordinance, I don't live in Allendale County. I'm not a member of the Allendale County Council. I am in Estill. I pay whoever.
Come on.
My people pay.
No, I'm trying to find the ordinance list. That's all I'm doing.
You know,
I should have muted.
I see that error, Ms. Bolden. I apologize.
If things are being done correctly, I won't have no backlash. But you know, it's time for me to say something. I've been sitting here long enough. Now, this work that was sent to me, it states, be it ordained by the mayor and council members of Allendale in the town council assembly. I'm not a member of Allendale.
Yes, that's the one spot I missed, Ms. Bolden, and I'm sorry.
But
everything else has Estill in there.
Mr. Marty, it should have been caught by Ms. Miller or whomever. It should have
been caught by me. That's my fault.
I go to the.
See, then you have a problem when you keep saying, you did these ordinance for me, you did this ordinance for us. It's like you're nitpicking. You know, I understand the ordinance. I can read. I'm just saying, the ordinance is designed. I refuse to sign. That's just me. That's my preference to it. That's all I'm saying. But you know, you keep saying that.
Hold on 1 second.
I want to make sure that you understand. I understand the ordinance, all of them. It's just certain wordings that I object to. But be mindful, this is unacceptable to me.
Ms. Bolden, we're not signing an ordinance into order tonight. We can't do that.
No.
We understand that there are mistakes. Everybody's reeling and everybody's trying to do their best. All we're trying to present.
I understand that. I understand that.
All right.
I'm done.
Let me know when you're finished talking.
I'm finished. I'm done.
All we're asking is to look at it, consider it. We're not, nobody's signing anything tonight. We're not putting into order anything tonight. We're trying to prepare ourselves and to be 5 steps ahead, which is going to be 10 steps behind this virus. We don't need to be angry at each other, angry at anybody on this call right now. All we're trying to do, well, the way you've expressed, and I mean, is a little bit of frustration. I understand that, but understand that all we're trying to do is just what we need to. We're trying to prepare. This is the reason we're having this discussion. we can address each other calmly about it. And we understand that, I mean, I didn't even catch that because I was going through all of it myself, and it's a lot to go through. I agree with you on that. But let's consider that the ordinance does hold some weight if it is properly worded. I'm not asking you to take a first reading on it, but if things progress the way things are progressing, we do need to put this in our terminology into our ordinances, because it is a tool for us to have in our toolbox. But it would have to, of course, state the town of Estill. This is just something to consider. We're trying to look at every avenue so that we're not having to do something at the last second that stops us from being proactive. I understand your frustration. I'm not trying to be critical, but understand that we're all trying to find the right things to do what we can do to better aid and look after our town. And I appreciate that you want to do it that way, because that's the way it should be done. But we're not there. Nothing's being signed tonight. Nothing's being put into order. We don't have to vote on this. We can table this and revisit it when it has the correct stuff. So, Mr. Savino.
I mean, Mr. Mayor, if I can, I just want to try and I just ask every member to focus back on the merits of the ordinance. I mean, I understand there's errors in verbiage. Nobody's perfect. It's a loitering ordinance at its heart. It's loitering. So I'd ask all the council members to focus on loitering. We've got loitering issues throughout the town. You know, we've got people that gather in buildings and hang around. And if our police officers don't have a way to disperse that, they don't have a way to disperse that. And that's what this document does. It gives our police officers the ability to disperse that. And that's the heart of the issue. If we want to debate something, we can debate loitering. Pick out any three proofreading errors you can find. Go ahead, you're going to find them. The debate needs to be around loitering. So if somebody has to do loitering, let's debate loitering.
I understand. I can read properly. I'm pretty sure. But the point of it is, what's on this paper states a fact. Am I correct? I understand it says loitering. I understand it. I'm not a child. I understand. I can comprehend what I read. I can understand very well. And you think I'm arguing, but I'm not. I'm just stating my fact, how I feel. Ain't got nothing to do with the rest of you. That's how I feel. So if I'm feeling that way, I got a right to express myself in that manner. So if you see it different, that's you. But this is how I see it, as me, DeWanda Bolden, no one else. Okay.
Are there any other comments?
No.
Where you know, this is I think that it needs to be corrected to say exactly everything perfectly. I'm not skipping around that. But the key issue here is prohibition of loitering. The key statements are prohibition of loitering. There are. That's the reason it's brought before us, is to look into something that we probably need to adopt, and we need to do it sooner than later.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do. It has nothing to do with the actual town name. Nothing's going into effect. The key issue is, as Mr. Savino stated, is this Bolden. You have found that there are errors. No one is questioning your ability to go through this. You called. We understand that, but you do need to understand we do have a lot to go through, and we do need to be prepared. Mr. Hyman, you have something to add?
Yes, sir. The only thing I'll say in regards to ordinance number 06-2020, I would say before we go any further with this, we already see in some instances we've got ordinances that are duplicated. I would say let's give Ms. Miller Ms. O'Banner, Mr. Harvey, whomever, time to see if we even have one on the books. If we do, then let's look at that one and amend it as needed rather than to go through doing this one and then we find out we've got another one. Because I think if the wheel's already invented, let's improve the wheel. Let's not make another wheel. And I think if we do that, that'll give us time to see, once again, if we've got an amendment on the books. If something similar to this, it might be just tweaking that one with wording. That's just my opinion.
All right, Mr. Savino.
I'll just throw this out there, and I think that whatever we decide to do with this or whatnot, I think not getting to the, I think council's skirting their duty by not discussing the heart of the issue, which is loitering, and council's ability and council's vision on what the town needs to have for loitering ordinances. That's our job. That's what we got elected to do. And that is to discuss what's appropriate, what laws are appropriate within our city limits. And if you want to have loitering, then I think everybody here needs to say, I want loitering, I don't want loitering. And that's what this is about. It's not about what proofreading errors on here. It's about council members debating whether or not it's appropriate to have loitering or not have loitering, and what the definitions of loitering is and where loitering is allowed. That's what we're elected to do.
You're absolutely correct. I understand what loitering means. I do understand what loitering means. What I'm saying is that proofread things before you send them out. Is that such a harmful thing to say? I have nothing to do with that. All I said, I agree with the loitering. I agree with that. Do you understand? I agree. I agree. But you want to make it seem like it's kindergarten. It's not. I just said I agree with the loitering. I did make a point about reading things over before sending them out. That's all I'm saying. Not nitpicking. I understand. Yes, we do need a loitering ordinance in place. We do. But in the fact that I'm not a child, you don't have to keep reiterating things to me. I understand what you're saying. Thank you, sir. Carry on. I'm finished.
Nothing's being sent out. Nothing's being sent out. It can't be sent out. That's not the way it works. We have to have a second reading of this. This would be corrected. This is just brought to the attention so that we can do we can make the right decisions and make things happen that need to happen to protect the citizens of the town. Now, I believe that we need to have this ordinance in its correct verbiage. We do it in a week, we do it in 2 weeks, we're behind. It's the first reading. It's not going to be posted anywhere until we have a second reading. And once we have that second reading, when we have the second reading, council will have had time to say it says Town of Estill. This is brought to our attention as something that may be a potential aid and something that we need to use. There are ends. If anyone has anything to comment, I would advise that we get it corrected. It's a very simple ordinance to provide, better protection and aid to our citizens and to our emergency services, to our fire department, mainly our police department, and to our EMS. I believe that something needs to be done when it has the correct terminology. This is just an example. This is not going anywhere. This is not going to be posted anywhere. We have to sign it. We have to have a second reading. Council, do y'all want to move forward with loitering or table it? I know that I'm not going to take a straw poll or anything. I can't do that, but I'll open the table up for whatever y'all would like to do with this motion, this ordinance. Mr. Howard.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to propose this as tentative solution to ordinance 06/2020. I would like to propose a motion that we accept ordinance number 06/2020 pertaining to loitering, contingent upon looking to see if we have any ordinance in place at the present time. And if we do, we update that ordinance. If not, then let's go back to this ordinance and make whatever changes we feel need to be. But my motion would be just in name and number, and let's do an investigation to see if we have an ordinance on the book already without going any further.
I second that.
All right, motion is on the table. It has been seconded. All in favor, I know by raising your right hand and stating aye.
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 I'll tell you something, if this ordinance gets much harder, I'm gonna lose it. All right. Moving on. Resolution 2020-01, ratifying a certain COVID-19 related executive order issued by the mayor on March 25th, 2020. Mr. Miller?
Just so that you know why this proclamation happened, in order for us to ensure that we receive FEMA dollars reimbursing us, yes, we are under the county. However, FEMA itself requires a declaration of disaster in each municipality, whether the county has done so or not, or the state has done so or not. So the mayor did a declaration of disaster in order to make sure that we meet the FEMA requirements when we go and ask for money to reimburse us. And our attorney has advised us that we should ratify that via a resolution. So that is why you have that in front of you.
Are there any comments to my left? Ms. Walden?
None.
Mr. Hadlin? To my right?
None.
Ms. Solomons?
No comment, Mayor.
All right. This time, I will take a motion to approve resolution 2020-01.
Mr. Mayfield, I'd like to make a motion to approve the resolution 2020-01.
We have a second.
Second.
Motion and properly seconded. All in favor, I know you by raising your right hand and stating aye.
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 All right, new business item I, resolution 2020-02, authorizing the movement of funds from BB&T account number ending in 827190 in the amount of $20,000 to be deposited in Palmetto State Bank. Fire Department special account number ending in 3734 for purchase of bunker gear for the fire department. Council, we can have a discussion on this if you want. We all know bunker gear is much needed, and we've worked on trying to make sure that our fire department has got what they need, and this will make it capable. Is there any discussion to my left?
Mr. Mayor, I would just real quickly, if you could have Ms. O'Banner just elaborate a little bit. We closed out some of those BB&T bank accounts, I think, a few months ago. If you just have her kind of elaborate on what we did there, and then maybe Mr. Havman, if he could talk just real briefly about some of the gear being expired and needing purchasing that.
Councilman Savino, we didn't close out any of the BB&T account. We only have the one account over at BB&T. We do bank with Palmetto. This is an account that has been in existence for quite a while, numerous of years, and it's funds that are actually been sitting there. And since the fire department do need bunker gears, this is one way that we can actually use this fund.
To address your question, Councilman Savino, this will make sure that we stay in compliant with OSHA and the NFPA guidelines. We found out approximately about 6 or 8 months ago that some of our gear was expired and in need of being replaced in order to stay under the guidelines of OSHA and the NFPA guidelines as well, to prevent us from being held liable if a firefighter was to get injured. That gear would be up to date and up to code.
Thank you.
Any questions to my left, Ms. Bolden?
No question.
To my right, Mayor Pro Tem?
No questions, Mayor.
Council, if everyone's in line with this, this is, something we need. We made it possible. How was something motion to accept resolution 2020-02?
Mr. Mayor, if I'm in order, I would like to make a motion to accept resolution 2020-02, authorizing the movement of funds from the BB&T account ending in 27190 in the amount of $20,000 to be deposited into the Palmetto State Bank Department special account number ending in 3734 for the purchase of bunker gear for the fire department.
I second it.
The motion probably second. All in favor, I know you by raising your right hand and stating aye.
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 Moving on. I'm Jay. Resolution 2020-03, declaring certain town property as surplus. Ms. Miller.
There are several items that are attached to it on Exhibit A. Before we can get rid of any property, anything that the town owns, it has to be declared as surplus, whether we sell it or give it away or dispose of it. We are, it's in Exhibit A. If anybody has any questions as to what is in there, please let me know.
I don't know if I've got an Exhibit A in my packet, Ms. Miller.
Okay, I will go through it then. 2 Motorola XTS 2500 radio heads, 2 commission tablets, apparently. I'm sorry, I meant to say council tablets. There are 2 or 3 tablets that were purchased for previous councils. They are out of date completely and have not been used for years, from what I understand. The vehicles are police vehicles that they have deemed that need to go to surplus. And the printer is at Town Hall. There's a Lexmark printer.
Council, what's your pleasure? Is there any other discussion?
No.
I'll now take a motion to accept resolution 2020-03.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I'd like to go make a motion to approve resolution 2020-03, declaring certain town property surplus.
We have a second.
Second.
So much probably seconded. No, you by raising your right hand and stating aye.
Aye.
Is there any public comment that's been received at this point?
No,
We
sir.
will address that. Okay.
Oh, sir.
All right. Well, we will address that as it comes out. Executive session. We have a contract for Bull Durham bids for repairs. I don't believe that that's going to be able to happen, but we can go into executive session and discuss this. If it pleases the council, at this time I will take a motion to exit regular session and enter executive session.
Mr. Mayor, if I'm in order, I'd like to make a motion that we exit regular session and enter executive session.
A second.
It's been motioned and properly second. All in favor, I know you by raising your right hand and saying aye.
Aye.
We're now in executive session.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We're recording. All right. We are all back online now. Is everyone ready? If we are, I'll take a motion to exit executive session and return to regular session.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Councilman Savannah.
I'd like to make a motion to exit executive session and resume regular session.
Second.
We have a motion that's been properly seconded. All in favor, I know you by raising your right hand and saying aye.
Aye.
We're now back in regular session. As for items listed for executive session, discussion of contract with Bull Durham bids for repair. Council, what's your pleasure?
Mr. Mayor, regarding items we discussed in executive session, I think it's pertinent that we disregard the bids that we received as they're not satisfactory and post the project for bid with some better more clear specifications and requirements.
Second.
Motion on the floor. Ms. Summers, did you second that?
Yes, I did.
Okay. All in favor, I know you by raising your right hand and saying aye.
Aye.
I would like to thank all of y'all for taking your time to do the duties that we have been elected to do. I know that this is different, I know this is hard, and we're frustrated, and we're all scared, and we've got a lot of things going on in the world. But my grandfather always told me that, always stated, this too shall pass. We'll get through this. We've got to stick together, and we've got to rely on each other during these times. Hopefully, our next meeting, we will be sitting next to each other. We will have to have meetings in between our regular scheduled meetings that we will be doing. We will have to do via Zoom. But I want y'all to know that I care about y'all and I care about what you're doing. Is there anything to my left, Mr. Savina?
Yeah, I'll try to be brief, and it's kind of the same comments I said last time. I think in a time like this, people need to follow the facts. They need to stay in tune to what people like Dr. Fauci, he's the nation's top infectious disease expert, what he says. Places like the CDC, places like DHEC, they've got a lot of good guidance on what people need to do as far as stay inside, as far as washing hands, as far as wearing a mask. That's a new thing that the CDC's put out now for people going into public. So follow the facts on that from the trusted entities, not Facebook, and encourage all of our citizens to do that. But we'll get through this. America has seen tough times, and they've come through it on the other side. This is this is not the 1918 flu pandemic, and they made it through that. So we'll make it through this. It's going to be strange for a while, but we'll make it through this. And people need to keep hope. We'll make it through this. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Savina. Ms. Ball?
I would just like to say to the citizens of the town, be safe, look out, check on your elderly, follow the CDC guidelines, and pray. I'm praying for you guys. I just ask, if you have a neighbor that's an elderly person who's living by themselves, check on them. Ask them if they need to run to the store, pick up meds, anything. Just watch out for them. And again, I love you, and you guys be safe.
Thank you, Ms. Bolden. Mr. Hadwin, to my right.
Just to reiterate what my colleagues on the other side of you have stated, just listen to the facts, the data, do use the precautions, take care of yourselves, take care of the elderly. Let's stick together through this, and just be mindful there is a fire burning ban at this point in time in the state of South Carolina. It may not impact you, but those individuals that have respiratory problems such as asthma, emphysema, that little bit of smoke and having to wear a mask can really make them feel like they're having a hard time breathing. So let's be mindful of each other, and with God's blessings and mercy, we'll get through this.
Thank you, Ms. Hadwin. Ms. Solomons.
I would like to echo the same sentiment as my colleagues. Everyone stay safe, take heed to the rules and regulations. You also elected us to do right and to serve and to protect, and that's what we are trying to do. In spite of whether we disagree, we still gonna do our job. And I'm gonna leave one word with you with a meaning. Lock in your secret closet, down on your knees with the man who can heal the land. Stay safe. I love you guys.
Thank you, Councilwoman Solomons. We've all been advised by the best epidemiologists, the best infectious disease doctors in this nation and in this world. We are seeing change, but we are potentially a long ways away. It is going to take time. Let's concentrate on what we need to have done. Let's try to focus on the things that matter in life, the things that we really care about, our family and our faith, our friends. As other council members have said here tonight, call those who don't have anyone. Check in on them. You never know what elderly person is sitting by the phone waiting for someone just to brighten their day. Those are the things that really matter. Let's try to stop controversy. Let's try to stop having a problem with what someone may comment about. Let's focus on the need of staying together and getting through this together. And we will. Let's be positive and let's have faith that we will get through this, because we will. But it takes those reconsidering their thoughts and their inclinations and their actions to change the situation. This council, this town, this group of people all care and love our town and our surrounding areas. We're here for you, and we're doing the things that we're doing because we care. We're not doing them for any other reason. We do this because we care about those around us. We're all family here in our small town. And we will make the best of this, and we will get through this together. Thank you. And at this time, I will take a motion to adjourn.
Meeting adjourned.
Second.
It's been motion and probably second. All in favor, I know you by raising your right hand and stating aye.
Aye.
Council, Administrator, Savannah, Mr. Harvey, thank you Everyone stay safe and have a good evening.
God
Good
bless
evening.
everybody.
Thank y'all.
I'm here. Okay.
Together
night,
we
all.
stand.
Good night.
Together we
Night.
stand. Together we stand. Divided we fall.
Good night.
Good
Good night.
night.